Well, hello, one and all. Ooh, what the heck happened there? Hello, one and all. This is RPG with DBJ. Welcome, creatives, community kind folks out there. Today is Future Friday, one of my favorite shows during the week. And this entire week was a theme of using science fiction, although that's not normal due to a little snafu of my own creation. Last week, we decided to go over science fiction throughout this week as a theme. And of course, today's Future Friday, so it absolutely fits in. Now, either we are taking science fiction, and specifically today, we're going to talk technology and spreading that to other elements throughout the tabletop RPG content that you want, or taking other elements of technology and incorporating them into your far future environments. Apparently my glasses kind of messed up there, so I need to be able to read the chat. Otherwise my face will be crushed up against the screen. There we go. All right, so technology. Now, not that this isn't a problem, but this was brought up by by Undo in the chat. If you are familiar with Undo, bring up the problem of using and utilizing and giving access and really creating conflict and adventures when technology is a big thing in science fiction, right? Okay, so one of the issues with technology, and I'm going to give you a very noticeable example that in today's world we just ignore when it comes to using technology, right? So back in the day, when not even back in the day, we still use this trope today, but if you've ever unos, dos, tres, cuatro, yeah. So back in the day when, and sometimes still used today, you have a situation where you want to tell a story. So we watch television or a movie most of the time. Maybe we're reading a book or what have you. And the main character pulls out their cell phone, and guess what? No signal. Something happens, there's no signal. Now, it's almost funny because sure, you have yourself your classic horror movie where they go off into the woods or mountains or something, and they'll go, I don't have a signal. Or the character goes into the basement of some building and they say, hey, I don't have a signal. Well, as we know, cell phones are getting better. Cell phone connections are getting better. And sometimes they're in the middle of major cities. they're on a highway off ramp, and they're just like, I don't have a signal. And we're all scratching our heads like, really? Like, okay, once, sure, twice, maybe. But every time you always need to send in important information you never are able to get through. Or here's another trope. I forgot my cell phone. In a society where we feel physical pain when you forget your cell phone. But in recent times, Zev says back in the day when candy was a quarter piece and TV had 3 colors if you count black. Yeah. Okay, let's yes, I know I'm showing my age, but in recent days now you actually see people pulling out their cell phones, and the smart writers are now displaying the actual activity happening on the phone, which allows the writers to have the characters express the things that they are trying to say across a digital medium. So now they're embracing the technology by allowing the devices that we have to express information. You'll see them start typing information out. Hey, I hate you. I wish you would leave me. And then you see them take their thumb and boop, 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 and they go back and delete it. And then they'll type in, oh, you have a good day as well. Click, or hey, I've been trying to get in touch with you. Click over and over, and you'll see them, the phone will ring and you'll see them swipe left or right. I'm not going to answer that call, even though I know it's vitally important. Click, boom, So in other words, a lot of us who would want to do a modern setting or near future or sci-fi setting when we feel like the technology would be overwhelming, it is not. It is because we're fighting against it. We should embrace the technology. We should embrace the idea that that technology exists, in this world. Um, so everyone says, oh, you'll be like the new Star Trek movies where darn near all the science is done from an iPad. Right, exactly. It's not ignoring it. It's like, oh, wow, that really does exist. Hell, in the old Star Trek, we didn't think we'd have, I mean, we now have technology that's actually better than some of the technology in the old Star Trek television series anyway. But so first of all, embrace the technology. Don't fight against it. Another thing is because player characters in most games tend to be the special snowflakes. They tend to be the ones that have access to, or are the ones that seem to come across as having the special abilities no one else has. We tend to bring that with us into our their hoverboards are still better. yeah, we're missing that. You know what I mean? Hell, go watch some of these older movies where they're like, in the year 2019, there'll be flying cars and cyborgs all over the streets, and you're just like, yeah, where's that? When did that happen? I'm still waiting for that time. But a lot of times we forget that the technology that's available to the player characters is available to darn near everyone else in the world. Sure, your player character may be walking around with a railgun on their back, but so is everyone else. Now, in Cyberpunk, it's kind of accepted, right? Street gangs have mono blades and maybe gyrojet pistols or flechette rifles or something. So we're used to them, gang members, extruding claws out of their fingertips or doing the Wolverine thing. And it's just no big thing. But in other areas, we sometimes I think it's an erroneous idea to say that the player characters have technology that the rest of the world does not. Now, it is true that when given a very thick, do I have a book nearby? When given a very thick player's guide or whatever the game may be, and handing it over to the players, that you're going to get a hodgepodge of ideas. Whether someone wants to be a full cyber, and I'm being very general here, right? Someone wants to be a full cyborg. Someone wants to be a gadgeteer and have a lot of gadgets. Maybe someone wants to be an alien amoeba. Someone else wants to be a psionic alien that floats through the air or whatever. Whatever the case may be in your specific sci-fi realm. But that doesn't mean going the opposite direction, that is available to everyone everywhere. And so a game master may feel like, well, I want to put my characters into a conflict, put obstacles in their way. I want them to feel in danger. I want them to feel stressed. And I don't really want them to fall back on very easy technology that allows them to get out of the situation. And I would say to you that just like today, in today's world, that there are still time, energy, and resources, and I would say a fourth category, an other category, still applies no matter what the case may be. So your player character who loves their railgun, firing out subsonic flechettes everywhere they go. Maybe they go to a planet or a habitat where they can't get ammo for it, or it may be very difficult for them to import these items that they have into the location that they're going. This will cause them time, energy, or resources. So time problems exist when, let's say, the player characters are special agents. They need to go into a habitat or to a planetary surface, and you want to create a situation where there are things that they don't have access to. So you as a game master, you're like, well, I just don't want to take everything away from them. So maybe their things are held in customs for a particular amount of time. And now they have to choose, okay, do I wait for customs for 3 weeks to get my stuff out? Or do I contact a black market connection to have to get other firearms or other types of weapons that are available in this highly restrictive regime on this planetary surface. Therefore, you incorporate obstacles using time as a factor. Zevron says, well, Captain America didn't have an equal until the Winter Soldier, and his super soldier serum wasn't the same as that one, and he didn't have the robot arm. Yeah, especially that iconic scene during the trailers of Winter Soldier where Steve Rogers throws his shield and this dude catches it in his hand. Right? We're just like, what? That was cool. You can have a similar result, but change the boon. Exactly. Sure. The cyborg soldier with the railgun in your game may, in one situation, completely dominate, and then in another situation, goes to a habitat or a planet, or goes to a location where there's nothing but retired cyborg soldiers with their own rail guns on their shoulders too, and he's just like, oh, whoa, I'm just one of 1,000. Deadman says, in Eclipse phase, you just say, quote, your mesh inserts are messing with you. Do you want to turn them off? Yeah. And I was going to, again, you guys are always well ahead of me. When it comes to limiting access to or use of technology, time is a factor. Maybe there's a certain amount of time before they're able to use it, whether in bring up Deadman's thing in Eclipse phase, where you say, well, you can just say your mesh inserts are messing with you. There are so many other things. For example, let's say there are solar flares that are messing with communications and electronics. There could be power outages. There's nothing. I'm not exactly sure how to describe this, but sometimes there's the triangle of danger, and the triangle of danger to me in gaming is like this. Your players have a situation, you set up a conflict in front of them, but you can create a triangle, and that triangle, that third point of that triangle, may have nothing to do with the players, but it still impacts what they're trying to do. For example, player characters need to sneak into corporate headquarters. Who's to say that a fire doesn't break out 3 blocks away, or that there's some kind of criminal activity happening near them? And so the city or the authorities go, oh, you know what? We're going to shut down all communications because there's a hostage situation, 1.5 miles away from the players. It has nothing to do with what they're doing, but they're shutting down communications because they don't want the criminals calling in something, or a bomb scare, or they're doing negotiations, and the players are like, ooh, that timing's really bad. Now, of course, that may seem a little convenient, but there are things. Maybe there was an auto accident or a train derailing, and the power goes out, and they're just like, well, to be safe, we're going to shut off the gas lines and electric lines, and we're going to have drones fly over to see what the damage is. And now you create this triangle of danger where you have the players, you may have their adversaries or their mission, and then you add this third element in that could change things. Now, of course, if you do this by surprise, it's going to seem a little convenient, right? Like the players rolling their eyes like, oh, of course there's a solar flare that we can't communicate with each other. Of course you just threw this in. What you want to do is you want to foreshadow these things long before the players get involved in it, right? In your mind as a game master, you're like, I want to set something up just in case this might be a problem. So let's say they go down to a planetary surface. You can say, oh, by the way, you really don't have to worry about solar flares on this planet. You're too far away. But if you foreshadow these events, whether there's weather events, police activity, construction, parades, any kind of thing, a holiday or something, you can use those elements to that on a spur of the moment. Once you insert them in as being a problem for the player characters, once you insert it, they already know, oh yeah, you did mention that today was a holiday and the streets would be choked with people and revelers and things like that. Yeah, we really can't take our high-speed vehicle and drive through the streets. We're going to have to figure out another way to get out of the building, right? Zev says, best advice I can have about science fiction tech: don't try to be overly scientifically correct. An example, a lightsaber is It sure would. They would just, I mean, yes, we know that a lightsaber essentially would be like a flamethrower or a laser beam, essentially. I mean, it doesn't exist. What you want to do, where some people say, but use the words realistic and unrealistic. What you want is to establish the rules. What you really want to establish is within the what is the my brain just crashed on me. You want to establish how the rules work in your world, no matter what the technology is. And once you establish those rules, try to follow those rules as closely as possible to how those things work. And it should be fine, right? We know what a lightsaber is. We kind of know how they work. We see them, how they're used visually in the movies. We're done, right? You don't need to explain getting too far into the weeds and having actuallys at the table will really pull things down. If you're someone who, if you have gone to the table and you agree to play in this world and it's highly cinematic and it really bothers you because the real science behind it isn't working, then I would suggest don't play, right? It's either accept the rules, how they work in this game world and play, or choose not to play, but don't keep bumping your heads and challenging how the rules of real gravity work, or how the rules of real vacuum work, or how the rules of real, radiation works, because we're playing a tabletop role-playing game. And if it's not gameable, it probably doesn't work in the setting, right? We understand how real technology works in our world. But in a game setting, if you're playing a horror game, the fact that your car all of a sudden doesn't work and your cell phone signal goes out, and you're playing a Call of Cthulhu modern horror game, well, that's a trope. That's a thing that happens in that world. So just accept it. Zed says the stream is really laggy tonight. Wow. Normally I'll get a flash on my side if like the stream is really bad, but I haven't seen that yet. But that doesn't, I'm not saying it's not true. It must be how YouTube is punching it out is probably what the deal is. Zev says, just have it be understandable and relatable. Players won't comprehend the science behind gases expanding and exploding, but they will understand a laser sword. Yeah. Dead Man brings up, or the blasters fire bolts that travel at less than the speed of an arrow, while in reality they travel the speed of light. Yeah. If blasters and lasers really existed, they would be highly accurate, and you would never, by the time you saw the beam, it would have already hit you, and all you're seeing is the residue of it traveling through the air. So yeah. JP says the word you were looking for before was verisimilitude, or being close enough to reality to be believable. Yes, it is. Thank you very much. While talking and reading and then having other thoughts in my head that are coming behind me, I always lose track. That's it's a curse and a blessing at times. But yes, JP is very correct. It is whatever we consume, as long as we understand how the rules work, we're fine. And if we know that when we leave and come back to those same rules, if those same rules work, we quite understand it. When Kylo Ren pulled out the lightsaber longsword with the two, I don't know, micro sabers on the side, it caused a huge. You're fine, Rickard. It caused a huge uproar, and the uproar was because we had never seen a lightsaber like that. And of course, the complaints come out: "Oh, you burn your hand. It doesn't make sense. That's not realistic." And the other group of us that were watching Kylo Ren with his longsword is like, "Oh, that's cool." And then that with the crossbar, the crossbar hilt that and for a long time that was just like, that doesn't make any sense, that's stupid. And the reasoning while people try to prove the reality that it would not be a realistically usable lightsaber, there were a bunch of people going, well, lightsabers aren't real in the first place, so arguing the merits really wouldn't work, right? But I think really what they were arguing is, we've seen lightsabers before, and this lightsaber does not fit into what the verisimilitude that we've been given. That's what they were really arguing. Although it is funny when you hear people saying, well, that's not realistic, but that's not really what they meant. JP says, usually just have a power source or a technical hand wave to explain the insane technology. Like, duh, this is how nega crystals work. Or, of course, that Terra Steel, with Terra Steel, this works. Yeah. Yeah, Rickard says, look cool, but lacks internal consistency. And that was the real issue. The internal consistency of what people have been given. Now, when we saw the double lightsaber, it was cool, but we still, internally, it was still consistent in the fact that it was a long, straight blade that did damage. If you see two of them, or you see someone wielding two separate ones, we still understood it. So, yeah, not right. Yeah, JP says the reason this argument comes up is new Star Wars versus old Star Wars. Yeah, of course. Zeb says the funny thing is the point if the lightsaber is, if anyone without force powers to use it, they'd end up like Luke at the end of Empire Strikes Back. Well, no, internally, consistently, we've seen Han Solo picked up a lightsaber and used it. Right. So that's an internal consistency of someone without force powers using a lightsaber. So it's internally consistent. In the old Star Wars, there was magical, mystical force that controlled the universe that set the tone, as JP says. In new Star Wars explains the force as blood bugs that do science fact or whatever. Then people want lightsabers that have some sort of logical grounding. Yeah. Metachlorians, fake news. Stop. You're so wrong. Yeah, you are so right. Dead Man Storyteller says the light up crossbar is consistent with Star Wars extended universe. Yeah, well, and again, it's just again, we're talking technology should be internally consistent. And Rick goes on, quote, it's fiction, so nothing is real, might be my biggest pet peeve as a storyteller. Right, and that's my point. It's not about being real or not real. It's just internal consistency. Now, the other reason for having internal consistency is breaking it. There is a good reason for breaking internal consistency, because you want to surprise your players. Hey, and it's not hurt. Although you have not explained the reason why, it should be, instead of the argument of, well, it should always work, you now have a situation where you have a way to explain it. Oh, these robots have some kind of metal on them. My blaster bolt didn't work. I wonder why. And then you allow the players to uncover the reasons why something doesn't versus, and for technology to be used or accessed, or for the players to achieve something, it might require them to express or expend energy. And that energy might be, it might be gaining knowledge. It might be research. That energy might be exhaustion, or expending, calling up a contact that they might not want to use, or traveling to a place, traveling to, they're on a planetary surface and they may have to go up the gravity well and go to a habitat to find something. Really, your stream? Let me know if anyone else's stream is there. I do understand that if I try to reset this, everyone's going to get kicked out. So I'm really sorry. I'm not getting any lag at all. It's not hitting me at all. So if any of the rest of you are getting that, maybe I'll cut the stream short and that, we'll make it a day. But just let me know. Yeah, Rickard says the same thing. Yeah, I'm having some problems with that as well. Just pause for 2 to 3 seconds, then view it again. Verbally, is audio coming through, or am I being broken up as well? Drangle says, yeah, from what I understand, the vibration of the saber is too unwieldy without force sensitivity, and you need the force to foresee your opponent's attacks. And JP says, YouTube is being fuzzy. The magic monkeys at Google are flinging their poo. It's, but it's usable. All right, sorry guys. I mean, there's nothing on my end that I can. Wow, is my sound really going out? Testing, 1, 2, 3. Oof. What the hell? Yeah, yeah, they're not giving me any options to take. All right, so energy, time, energy, resources. All right, so while the audio and visuals cutting every couple of seconds. Oh, damn. All right, so resources, like I mentioned before. Yeah, and Tesla saying the sound is bad. Usually what will end up happening is once the live stream records, it gets once YouTube dumps it in, all of that will disappear. So in a strange way, I hope some people might want to tune into it later after it compiles in their system, because usually that will completely disappear. Although I have had problems where my screen's going fuzzy for a little while. Yeah, I think it's just the YouTube gods, or maybe they're just pissed off that I'm dumping a lot of live streams into their servers, and they're not getting much money from it. Maybe that's the issue. But anyway, okay, resources. So I did mention calling up a contact or having to travel somewhere to get some kind of information or set up something for their technology to be used. And sometimes the resources are simply just money. Those resources could be a player character has like 5 power cores and they need to use one of the power cores to do something. Of course, you can go back to the classic, our communications are bad unless we get to the highest peak kind of thing. Hey, we need to get out of the valley, or get out of the basement of this building, or get out of the parking structure. We need to get to the roof of the building, or the top of the mountain, or get to the radio tower cable and plug ourselves in. So if you as a game master really want to limit the technology that players are using, and you feel like controlling where they're at and their access to it is a thing, time, energy, resources. Pick one or multiples of those, combine that together, and maybe that's a thing that you can use. That's as a matter of fact, that's all used quite often. I know we've been bringing up Star Wars quite a bit, but if you think about it, look at the Millennium Falcon. How many times has it been you guys are so, how many times has it been stuck in dry dock? The warp drive doesn't work, the navigation system happens to go out, it gets dinged by an asteroid, and someone has to run somewhere else on the ship to fix something, to get something done. They need to fly out of a gravity well to get something done. So yeah, that's a trope that's used plenty of times. As long as you foreshadow some of those events, it would be cool. Even if you just mention something vaguely, like as you land on the planet's surface, your communications network realizes that there's some kind of uprising. While this doesn't necessarily pertain to you guys, the authorities are in high alert all over the planet, and leave it at that. And then when the players go to run back to their ship, or try to make a call to call down, I don't know, the hacker wants to have a laser blast come down from a satellite. When they find out that there's a lot of difficulty doing that, it could be because of the particular situation you foreshadowed ahead of time. Zev says, you could be very unique with how energy and power sources work in your game. In a Rift's live play I watched, the group went to a backwater planet on the edge of the galaxy to grab strange crystals. The crystals would move and wobble and power their ship more than usual fuel. They rhymed out to be, Oh, they turned out to be from giant obsidian-skinned bat monsters. Power our ship! Something comes breaking, knocking on the door, trying to get out to them. Yeah. Rickard says, "Future Friday in a sci-fi week. Does that mean far, far in the future?" Yeah, 5 days at least. Um, Rickard says, "Does the light speed drive ever work on that ship?" It works at the speed of narrative, I think. Uh, we've done. We actually did a live stream, and we might do another one. Maybe I'll touch on it here. We even did one about the 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 pitfalls and the limitations and the narrative functions of light speed travel, because once you hand a spacecraft to your players, the danger is players go to planet, players cause trouble. Game master wants to have story, players just jump on starship and warp drive themselves out of the way, i.e., escaping the adventure. Right. So we were coming up with reasons why certain things work or don't work, such as they use up their power crystals. It takes a certain amount of time to navigate. You can only warp you cannot warp within close to gravity wells, such as certain star systems. Maybe there are only so many wormholes to go around. Maybe they're mechanical warp holes, so you actually have to fly to a wormhole or warp related location, almost like a space station donut that you have to fly through. Um, it could be a problem of every time you warp, you power your ship down. So when you arrive at the other end, you basically have no power. So it might be a danger. It might be warping only in one direction. For example, connecting it to the spinning of the galaxy. So it's not you warping, it's you standing still while the galaxy spins behind you. So maybe warping only goes in one direction. Maybe it requires specific coordinates to get to where you're going. And if you mess up those coordinates, you might go off, basically go off script or hit something along the way. So all those things, maybe it requires so many minutes, hours, even days to power up a ship to get to the point of going faster than light. So you have a lot of things you can play with in your, instead of just handing your players a ship that can travel through light speed and have this completely run away from the problems they create for themselves. Ricker says the Millennium Falcon must be the most broken ship in cinematic history. Fiction that is not about ships that didn't crash and burn. That is, yeah, yeah. It's the most broken ship that still flies, and we think it's still cool, but it's kind of cool. I mean, the Millennium Falcon's kind of like like a beat up old car that we just love, just feels comfortable. Zev says the point being, don't feel restricted to just use generic rare metal like unobtainium. Still one of the dumbest names I've ever seen for an object. Oh hell yeah, unobtainium. Hey, human beings would definitely name something unobtainium. I guarantee it. Hell, we have the Milky Way galaxy, and scientists named a bordering galaxy Snickers. Like, really? But anyway, Zeb says, that or an oil analogy. Tesla says, says, quote, "Sir, the possibility of the hyperdrive successfully working is approximately 3,720 to 1. Don't tell me the odds." Rickard says, like the hyperspace relay in Babylon 5, or like the Mass Effect relays in Mass Effect, or the hyperspace phaser thing in Cowboy Bebop. Right. It's the we can't just go to hyperspace whenever we want. We have to go to a relay station. Another limitation that I've seen is you can only warp drive in one direction. You have to set up your own relay to go back the other way. So here's what I mean. You have to physically travel under light speed from one direction to another, or send a drone out or something like that to open up a doorway. And then once the two doors are opened up, you can travel through them freely. So that could also be a limitation where the players are in their ship. Maybe they're an explorative crew. They take with them the exit doorway or the landing doorway. So they have to physically travel to where they go, set up the doorway in orbit or wherever the case may be, on an asteroid or on the 8th planet away from that binary star system. open up the door, connect back home, or to connect to the network, open the doorway large enough for a ship to get through, and then that allows them to hop back and through at light speed, which might be an adventure in and of itself. Zevron says, use a fire elemental, use magical power, exactly, or a caster connected to the ship, making them one, have ships piloted by dragons, etc. I love the idea of a character like a wizard or a cleric or something having to power the ship, like literally like standing in the power source and using their own spell slots or something as a power source. I love that idea. I would definitely do that. Durango says, what a piece of junk. Yeah, you watch your mouth. I'm just messing with you. Ricker says, Luke was right when he first saw the ship, though. The interesting thing I like about the Babylon 5 version is that sufficiently large ships can make jumps to hyperspace, but smaller ships would have to search out the relays. Ooh, that's true. That's I hadn't thought about that. Zev says, in Halo, warp drives from the alien ships is done in deep space. If done on planet, it creates a giant energy sphere that EMPs everything and sends lethal amounts of radiation and Cat 4 hurricane winds. Of course. And that's another thing you can do as well, right? You know, maybe it's not possible to, again, launch your ship into hyperdrive the minute you get out of the atmosphere. Maybe you literally have to be, you know, well outside the gravity well. For example, maybe let's take Earth's solar system. Maybe you can't go into hyperspace near Mars. Maybe you have to be well past Charon and Pluto. Maybe you have to be well past the Oort cloud and the Kuiper belt in order to activate the warp drive, because anything closer, the gravity will disrupt maybe your navigation, or you'll hit something, or what have you. It also could be ramping up speed. Maybe you have to go around a planet like Jupiter, or warp around the sun to gain speed fast enough to hit warp drive is a possibility as well. Rickard says, so you can have large military ships being able to warp in, but you as players won't have access to that tech as your ship isn't large enough to house the hyperdrives. Yes, we've seen that. That's actually a thing in Star Wars, where small ships don't have hyperdrive capabilities. Maybe you have to connect to basically an external hyperdrive engine if they're small enough for small ships, or you have, like you say, you have to be inside of or be within the warp field of a larger ship that's able to house those kind of things as well. Also, larger ships might be able to carry the fuel. A small ship may only be able to carry one use, one dose, or what have you, as well. Zev says, like in Halo 3 ODST, you play soldiers in a city. As aliens warp out, you see the city get everything is on fire, or fire or black, yeah, or fire or black. Deadman says, in BattleTech, you have to be very far from the star to make the jump. Exactly. So we already know, even when because those creators had to come up with their own limitations. I believe it's called Sanders Rules of Magic. Someone in the chat, I know you're going to find this. I believe it's called Sanders or Sanderson's Rules of Magic. It's not how well the technology can be used. It's the interesting thing are the problems that come from trying to use the technology. Is it Sanderson? Thank you, Zev. It is Sanderson's, Brandon Sanderson's Rules of Magic. For those who watch this, yeah, my favorite author, yeah. Brandon Sanderson's Rules of Magic, and I can't quote exactly what they are, but look it up. It's very good. And one of the interesting things he mentions is it's not the power of the technology or the magic. He mentions magic, but essentially this goes across any special feature you have in your world. The interesting thing are the limitations of it. So limitations in weapons are a thing. In Dune, they had weapons, they had energy weapons and energy shields. And if an energy weapon struck an energy shield, it would basically create like an atomic bomb would go off. And that was the reason why people fought with hand weapons and didn't use a lot of blaster weapons, for fear of hitting an energy shield. So an energy shield could block more kinetic energy the faster it went. So if you used a blade, it could slip through those energy fields. Now, of course, we're thinking in our heads like, that kind of, I don't know, scientifically, is that weird? It doesn't matter. Internally consistent to Dune, that's how energy fields worked. And so therefore, there was a reason, that was the writer's reason for not having people stand 3 miles away and just blast their heroes to smithereens, right? That's what they did. That's how the author connived their way to make things make sense. Ricker says the ability to solve problems with magic is directly proportional to the reader's knowledge of the magic. That's yeah. It is. You have a situation, you need to solve the problem. We, as the reader or the person who's trying to understand the situation, we now know the main character has magic, air quotes. How are they going to solve this with their magic, right? Superman. Why didn't Superman use his heat vision? Doesn't he have heat vision to shoot the gun out of the guy's hand? Those are the kind of questions we come up with when we see Superman not stop, I don't know, an armed robber shoot an innocent person, right? We know the magic is Superman can fly at super speed. Superman can't be hurt by bullets. Superman has heat vision. How did this bank robber shoot this innocent person while Superman's looking directly at him? Those internal inconsistencies are the things that we see, and then we, of course, complain about it, i.e., bumping our heads up against the internal inconsistencies in the much fun and much blasted Endgame movie, right? Not giving any spoilers away if you haven't seen it, but yeah, are there internal inconsistencies? Yes. Was the emotional output of the movie excellent? That was also excellent as well. So, but yes, those are things that we see. We were like, well, wait a minute. Can't this person do this thing at this time? You know what I mean? Zevron says, what can Magneto do? Control metal, right? What can Gandalf do? Whatever the hell the plot needs, right? Exactly. Partially quoted from one of his lectures. Yeah, about soft magic and hard magic. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, what level is Gandalf? And then we all start arguing about it. He's only a 5th level druid. Oh, he's probably a 20th level wizard. It's like he's both and neither of those things. Zev says, and the answer to why Superman doesn't do X to stop situation is, do you want a story or not? Shut up. Yeah. Well, see, and that's the reason why internally you don't create characters whose magic can solve all problems. While sometimes we as fans can be a little bit masturbatory in the sense of we want to see our favorite characters do the best things all the time. And the problem with that is there's no conflict, there's no drama, there's no problem. And then therefore you have no story, right? So if there are no limitations on what someone can do or access or be able to do, then all you're doing is looking at a 15-minute YouTube video of your favorite character beating the hell out of everyone. Like, for example, Deadpool Kills the Marvel Universe is like a masturbatory wet dream, right? It's like, yay, I get to see my favorite character just, murder every other character. Great. But there's no story, right? There's no, it's just like, there's no conflict there. There's nothing to watch or see or wrap your head around that doesn't become something that's a problem. Rika says, I do find the problem with the results of magic is that it becomes trendy to go all out on hard magic. I think it's because it's far more difficult to write soft magic, and hard magic is easier because you can just write down all the rules, whereas soft magic is like, oh, it's unexplainable and it does this random thing that no one understands, and internal logic writers don't want to have those problems. So everyone says, I don't know, I could watch another movie of T'Challa beating everyone again. Well, again, he's the Black Panther is the Superman of Africa and the Marvel universe. Doesn't have the flight, doesn't have the eye beams, but he's pretty much the special snowflake surrounded by a bunch of people. It's not really about whether it's nothing about his physical limitations. It's all about his mental and social limitations. Ricker says, I should add that this is a problem with readers, not with Brandon's ideas. I think he fully understands there are pros and cons of both ends. Of course, because there are benefits to having soft magic, meaning undefined, and of course, air quotes, undefined magic. That's been the plot of many a story. Hey, we're going into the Bermuda Triangle and we don't know how it works, right? We have an energy source that powers our starship, but we're not really sure how it works. You can have those things. Zev, Zev says, Sanderson says there is no wrong or right way. It just depends on your setting. Soft magic works for Lord of the Rings. Of course. Rickard goes on to say, well, you can make something hardish magic, but present it as soft magic, as you don't tell the reader how it works. You just know how and what can be done. And of course, a lot of that can be deciphered by the reader. Like we start to fill in the blanks until we uncover more of the story. And so it might be soft in the beginning until we start reading more and more things. Deadman says the Flash series fixed the problem with time travel by explaining that the result will always cause further problems and paradoxes with no possible way to actually fix them. Also, squirrel. Yeah. Well, and again, it's creating those situations. And now, of course, we are talking about technology and magic and hard and soft, quote unquote, magic. Well, we're just replace the word magic with technology, right? So in your gaming world, let's bring it down to a hard tax, right? You've got player characters who in your sci-fi game have access to some sort of technology. Let's get out of the starship realm and let's go to the personal, right? They're walking around with heavy weapons. They're hackers. They have psionics. They have we can use Clark's laws instead. Yeah, I hear you. Yeah, specifically the third law. Yeah, sufficiently advanced technology, indistinguishable from magic, right? So we have our player characters running around, and you want to put them in situations. You're creating the adventure. You want them to go to planet side. You want them to go to habitats. You want them to do all these things, and you want to present obstacles in their way. Sometimes the easy thing is to quote unquote take away what the players can do. Right. I'm going to capture them or have them imprisoned and take away their weapons. I'm going to have them, have something where you strip them of their capabilities. While that might be usable once or twice, it's not a very good thing to do that. What you want to do is create obstacles in front of them and have the players try to navigate their way around it. For example, most likely, more often than not, space habitats will not allow heavy weapons into their shells or something like that, because no one living there wants you taking your railgun, popping holes through the outer hull or shell or dome or whatever the case may be, right? So maybe it's illegal. Now the player wants to get their weapons on board. They want to walk around with their railguns. And by explaining to them beforehand, listen, you take your railgun out and pop a hole through the hull. If you miss shooting your target, even if you hit your target, you do realize that the slug is going to go through the hole, and then there's going to be explosive decompression, right? You do realize the air is going to escape out. Now, I know scientifically that if you pop a hole in a spacecraft, air doesn't escape explosively like in the cinema. It actually will just leak out slowly. Our own, even today, our own sealed ships actually leak air just a little bit all the time. So it would leak out slowly. You can actually take the time to go over, put a slat patch on it from the inside or the outside and stop it. I know that. But cinematically, explosive decompression might be in your world, i.e., you might want to think of a different way to get out of the problem. Now, of course, depending on the environment, one player might go, "Oh man, you're nerfing my character. I can't use my railgun that I love." Well, in this particular environment, no. But when you're on the planet side in the jungle, of course you can use it, right? So it's just a matter of switching up the spotlight and creating situations where, hey, you guess what? You walking around with a big laser gun strapped to your cyber arm, or you with the big head and the psionic powers, they don't trust you. You're going to have to figure out a way to circumvent the circumstances. And if you include a time factor, that may also keep your players from doing the analysis paralysis thing and going, "Oh, well, my guns are in locked up in the hold for 3 months. I'll just wait 3 months until I can get my guns out, and then we can start the adventure," right? Everyone says the players will still know you're just trying to prevent them from using their toys, stealing from experience from a Star Wars game. Quote, "You can't use a flamethrower in an underground temple. It might explode things," DM says after I nuked his big bad's apprentice. Yeah, the point is that there should be consequences to actions. And not the exact same consequences to the exact same actions, right? If you're a martial artist and you're a wizard, and one person says, "Well, the wizard is always more powerful than the martial artist," sure, unless the wizard throwing fireballs is on a sailing ship in an ocean, and casting one fireball is going to burn down the ship and drown everyone, including themselves, right? It's where you do it and the situations you present yourselves in. Now, if the big bad is on a space habitat that doesn't allow heavy weapons, and the players connive to create a situation for the big bad to leave the habitat to come out in the open in a place where they can use their heavy weapons, well, that's them being very smart, circumnavigating the situation to do something that will allow them to express themselves. So again, it's an obstacle. Players are smart. They do something to get around the obstacle. You just clap your hands. You're not going to run out of big bads. You're not going to run out of the environment, right? Rickard says, "A, sir, what's that in the bag?" B, this is my Ultra Hole Duster 3000. A, sir, what makes you think you can bring it into this habitat? B, this is my one true love. I call her Vera. Yeah. But yeah, Zebra says, "Unless the wizard is a martial artist, a la Stephen Strange." Yeah, I hear you. But anyway, again, setting up obstacles, using that time, energy, resource triangle to present those problems. Also, I think we tend to forget that, or we feel stressed when players have access to technology, but for the most part, most technology is available to everyone else in your universe. If your player character is armored out and cyborged, why wouldn't regimes who have access to both money and resources and knowledgeable and experienced individuals have the exact same thing? It would only take one time for a CEO's, I don't know, 5-mile tall corporate office to be broken into by some cyborg mercenaries, to have every other corporate office spend money and resources to hire individuals who are just as capable or more so to prevent such things happening again. So that's another thing where, and I think it's a trope that players are used to in a lot of role-playing games, that, oh, my character's a barbarian, therefore there shouldn't be any other barbarians in the world, right? Or my character's a rogue. I guess I'm the only rogue in the world, and no other person should be expecting another rogue in the world, which is not a true thing. People in a realistic world, even for people who are not as maybe they're not used to the players, not used to having conflict with players that are as experienced as they are, but they definitely would be, the hacker that breaks into a system, the corporate office might be patrolled by 6 other hackers that are on the payroll at 24 hours a day. Hey, they hire people to block the system. And when the player character goes to hack into the system and they find out that there's 6 other people out defending it, sure, the player character might go, wow, that's unfair. And then you as a game master go, well, yeah, of course it's unfair. They've got more money, more resources, more time, and more incentive to stop people like you. So sure, it's supposed to be unfair. That's a real thing in using resources to stop something from happening. When the police or military or fire come to a scene, they want to stop it with overwhelming force. You never want an equal situation. You always want to have more force than necessary to prevent that kind of thing from happening again, i.e. having your players think outside the box. Ricker says you can solve it by restraining bolts and such, so you can carry the weapon or cyberware, etc., but it can only use a fraction of the power of what it's needed. Basically, turning mil spec into basic spec. And more people need to be like, was it Sergeant Johnson? Yes. Science fiction. There is a part of science fiction that's very similar to the medieval piece-bounded weapons, that someone with a cybernetic limb or a weapon or something can have a bolt attached to it, much like bolts attached to robots. We've seen that in Star Wars. Yes, going back to that. Talking about Zev's comment. My fault. I did miss that, Zev. He says, quote, back in my day, Sergeant Johnson, back in my day, we didn't have any fancy schmidt. Sorry, I got to say it correctly. Back in my day, we didn't have any fancy schmancy tanks. We had sticks, 2 sticks and a rock for the whole platoon. We had to share that rock. You're one lucky Marine. I had to do that. Sorry, man. I had to say it like that. Anyway, but yes, the point being is that we've seen bolts attached to robots. We've seen bolts attached to cyborgs. The ankle bracelet, neck bracelet kind of thing, where you can come in here and I'm looking at you funny. You're going to be tracked everywhere you go, or one funny move and we're going to press this button that's going to send an electrical charge through your body if you get out of hand. Yeah, you can come in, but you're going to have to, keep that kind of thing. Zev says he actually has a smooth, attractive voice, but yeah, not of this world, buddy. I'm being stupid, but you get my point, right? It's the idea that yes, you can put limitations on technology in your world, how it's used, the certain situations. As a matter of fact, you can even go, ooh, what the heck, kitty, really? Zev says he actually has a different speech depending on your difficulty. Yeah. But there's also the idea that you can, in your own setting, technology could work different depending on in the way it's used and the places it's used. For example, maybe certain weapons give off a certain energy field that alerts the authorities. So, for example, if you have if you have grazer weapons that shoot like X-rays or microwaves or high intensity radio waves or sound frequencies, or beta particles or whatever the case may be, they could have other side effects. They could alert the authorities, or not necessarily the authorities. They could alert sensors that create an alert that alerts the authorities. It could have a side effect of causing electrical EMPs when close to certain electronic devices. For example, if you fire I'm going back to the railgun, but it could be some other kind of blaster. Maybe if you fire that, the power browns out or goes out completely for a short amount of time. It could be very easy to track. So if your weapon goes off, it's like a heat signature of sorts. We've seen that with starships. Maybe even hand weapons do that. A big major rifle might do a lot of damage, but it could also create a signature that's easy to track from satellites or something. There could be drone systems or robots or other kind of automated systems that go around and look for radiation or X-rays or laser blasts or high intensity electromagnetic fields or sonars detecting motion or things of that nature. Today, here in the city of Columbus, Ohio, we have certain neighborhoods that are so dangerous that gunfire goes off. We have technology today that's being used by cities that came from the military that can detect the sound of firearms, pinpoint where they came from, and send the authorities to that location when that gun was fired. Right. So we have those things today. In the future, who's to say that they don't have 24-hour drones detecting the sounds or the energy emissions from high energy weapons or what have you? Zeb says, what we got here is 2-ton HE spewing. Divine intervention. If God is love, then call me Cupid. Right out of space, blasted down. A drone device that is the physical representation of a scry spell. Of course, yeah. Why couldn't a reskin a familiar in Dungeons and Dragons as a mechanical device that floats around? Right, just use the same stats, but instead of it being a living creature, it could be a scrying device, like an orb or a crystal or a ball of light or a mechanical clockwork device that looks like a cube with butterfly wings attached to it that are mechanical, that flap like a hummingbird, anything like that. Rickard says, time for me to not go back to work, oddly enough. I'm actually headed out to buy some candy, then back to work so I can eat said candy. You best eat said candy. I'm walking to work as we speak. Well, I'm glad that I could fill your days. Okay, guys. So of course we've been here over an hour. Sorry about the phasing in and out of the both audio and visual. Sorry about that. But it was Future Friday. Thought I'd go into that. I know we didn't go too deep into eclipse phase, which is a specific type of science fiction, very transhumanist, post-human type of thing, which may not be everyone's cup of tea, but it's one of my favorite. Maybe I might have to do something like that similarly. It worked out nicely after we brought it up. JP, thumbs up. A robin just tackled an SUV. I hope you mean an individual named Robin, not a bird. And if that bird knocked over that SUV, I need to see a video of that. I got to see a photo or something. No. I'm joking. Guys, thank you very much. By the way, there might be a period of time. Of course, I have vacation time and things like that. What I am doing is creating a collection, a cache of videos. They will be far shorter than these 1 hours because you guys won't be participating because I will have them pre-recorded. But YouTube now allows us to pre-record videos and have them released on a particular day. I will let you know specifically when those days are coming up. So they will be released Monday through Friday and maybe even through the weekends because they will be much shorter, no more than 10 to 15 minutes. But they will be coming up. So yeah. Rickard says, how many people in here have ever played Eclipse Phase? I of course have played Eclipse Phase, not as often as I would have liked. And even without the rules, I think for me, I think the books are worth the money just for the background information. I think the setting stuff is top notch. I love it. So not my car, whatever. All right, guys. Again, salutations. Please don't measure your loves by your hates. Let's just embrace the things that we love. If we don't like it, let's just shrug it off. Most of that stuff is shruggable. We don't have to start complaining about what we hate. I think it's a waste of our energies when we can take that energy and place it far more into the things that we love. JP says, never played it, but I'd love to get the chance. As a matter of fact, Posthuman Games has the rules for Eclipse Phase for free. You go to eclipsephase.com and you can download it there. They actually have it open. As a matter of fact, they have an open gaming license, which I'm surprised myself that I haven't delved into that. But yeah, they have an open gaming license, as a matter of fact. So you can actually write both books and music and gaming materials for Eclipse Phase as well. yeah, pretty surprising that the rules are free for as expensive as the books are. But if someone's willing to give away their uh, excellently rendered and written materials, I think it's worth it to spend the money to benefit the business for them using it. But yes, by the way, guys, yeah, not interested in it, don't understand it. That's fine. It is not for everyone. Not a problem at all. You just have to. It's like embrace the things you like. Just keep an open mind for things you don't, and if you like it, if not, yeah, go ahead, taste it. If not, whatever. Yeah, they do have a second edition. Supposedly, it is a easier to dive into first edition, but I haven't looked into it. Yeah. Oh, well, they have a second edition now, so only the stuff for the first edition is free. Yeah, it's okay. All right, guys. I'll see you guys later. Everyone have a great weekend. I will see thee Monday. See ya. Deadman says that his second edition hasn't been released yet. That's all right.